Unit 4, chemical reactions and quantities. First off, some things that are technically in some ways review, and that is the law of conservation of mass, given to us by Antoine Lavoisier. Tells us that we must know the mass at the beginning of a chemical reaction and the mass at the end of a chemical reaction must be the same. So when we have this, the same thing has to happen with our chemical reactions. Now, in a macroscopic, large scale, conservation of mass, very easy to understand. The amount that we start with has to be the amount that we end with, as long as we're able to control everything. How do we do that at the atomic level? And really what it comes down to is we need to make sure that this is being done in non-nuclear processes, which is easy for us because we're not doing any nuclear chemistry. Nuclear chemistry is usually end of second semester general chemistry. Okay? That's usually stuff that's way at the end. And if you even get to that in a general chemistry class. If you get there, that would be quite the experience. There's literally semester classes on nuclear chemistry alone. And then there are people that go specifically into graduate school and write master's and PhD dissertations on nuclear chemistry. We are not doing that. For us, non-nuclear chemistry is what we deal with because that's chemistry that we're going to deal with in more of our everyday life. It's stuff that we're going to see every time. So basically, we need to figure out a way to make sure that the number of atoms on each side of our equations are equal. Back in Unit 1, we can describe changes in a chemical reaction using a chemical equation. We talked about the chemical change, ways to identify chemical changes, and therefore a chemical reaction was happening. At the time in Unit 1, we didn't actually look at all the specifics. We just wanted to see, can we identify whether or not a chemical reaction is taking place? And those methods that we use to determine whether or not a chemical change is occurring, ways to identify that, heat and light being given off, gas or odor, permanent color change, and the formation of a precipitate, were the four methods that were ways to see that a chemical reaction is happening. There are two parts to a chemical equation: the reactant side and the product side. So there are two sides to a chemical equation: the reactants on the left and the products on the right. So the reactant side, chemicals that are on the left side of the arrow, they are the chemicals that are being reacted. So the reactants are the ones that are reacting. The things that are making the chemistry happen. Here we have an example of methane and oxygen, which is, for those of you that are at home, might be the method that is heating your home if you use natural gas. But it can also be as simple as the Bunsen burner going, as that is the same gas that is used to have a Bunsen burner going. It's the same gas that is used to heat most homes. If you have a gas stove, chances are it's natural gas. Unless you would know if you're using propane, but instead of CH4, then you would just have, I believe, C3H8. It would still need to mix with oxygen, because without oxygen present, a combustion reaction will not happen. So reactants are on the left-hand side. That's kind of what's being put. I always say, like to reference as saying, that's what's being put in the beaker, the test tube, so to speak, sometimes. It's what you're mixing together, is the reactants. The products, that's what's being produced by the reaction. The arrow can be looked at as kind of a plant. What do plants produce? They produce products. The arrow is where the reactants come, form, and then spit out the products. Some products for some chemical reactions have a predictable component to them, meaning these reactants always make these products. We will look at some of those. Such as the example that I have here, carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide and water are always the two products of a chemical reaction dealing with combustion. Not all chemical reactions produce carbon dioxide and water, but all combustion reactions. This is the product to the previous reactant slide. Now, sometimes, say if your furnace is not combusting efficiently, if your furnace is not running efficiently, what you have to have in your house as a safety measure is the carbon monoxide detectors. If your furnace is not running efficiently, carbon monoxide is a byproduct of that. That is the tell that your furnace is not working properly, because the reaction is not complete. That's why we need to, that's why we also make the comment, a complete combustion. Incomplete combustions make carbon monoxide. Incomplete combustions means that there's an inefficiency in something. We don't want that. So when we make chemical reactions, we observe what happens at the macroscopic level. Okay? We can say, when I mix this and this, this is what's going to happen. When I mix sodium hydrogen carbonate with acetic acid, a vigorous reaction occurs. Essentially, mixing baking soda with vinegar. Now for us, we're going to take these and put these into equations, because some of the chemical reactions that we're going to look at are not always safe to do in the classroom. So we write them out. And this is why I like in my classes to try and get you into the lab and see as much chemistry as you possibly can. seeing chemistry, doing the chemistry in the lab is important because it allows you to visualize chemical reactions based on how they are written. You might not be able to do all of them, but you will at least have experience of going, oh, this is what this might look like based on my experiences. So when I have sodium hydrogen carbonate, acetic acid, those are my reactants. They are producing carbon dioxide and water. Now the sodium acetate, actually, very hard to see. Why? Because I still have vinegar left over. Okay? I still have sodium, maybe a little bit of sodium hydrogen carbonate left over. Okay? And the only way to actually know the sodium acetate, because it's ionic, would be to evaporate everything in the vial, or in this case, beaker, to eliminate any extra water or acetic acid that would be there. Now, we use the chemical symbols so that we don't have to write out the chemical names, because that becomes much more long and tedious. By using the symbols, we're able to see how many of each element we have present. And that helps us, and what actually ends up writing out of the chemical reaction, utilizing the symbols. And it's the use of the symbols from the name that allow us to make our lives a little bit easier, having had naming.